Welcome back to another podcast. I'm back in my room because it's basically freezing outside and I can't be bothered to heat up the car because it takes forever. So I'm literally staying in here. That's how you know it's winter, when I refuse to go outside the house. So I haven't done a podcast in a while because, if I'm being honest, I did film one like 2 weeks ago with my friend Alvin, all about men's mental health and some real good topics, and then my SD card decided to corrupt. That basically put me into a bad mood and I just haven't filmed since. But I also kind of want to do a bit of a summary, like a recap of like how to get into healing, like where do you start, what are the steps and processes and everything. Like a lot of people come to me and they're like, oh, I see your podcast but like I don't think it's my thing, or like I relate. But that's exactly like why I set up this podcast, was for the people that like don't really know where to start or don't think that anything particularly deep has happened, but like there's still so much to unravel and learn about yourself. So healing is like different for everyone, and it depends what you're healing from, because if you're healing from like a bereavement or like PTSD or just generic traumas or childhood traumas, like it's all very different and depends on the person. But there is a few things that I've learned in therapy, and across the board everyone seems to talk about similar steps and similar things. I think if you're sitting there and you're like, I want to like heal or become a better person, you really have to go back to you. Even if like the reason you're healing may be from other people, like the first step just to even comprehend everything is to go to you. Kind of, what are your good traits and what are your bad traits? And what's really interesting is like once you've like acknowledged what your bad traits are, that's even a massive step in itself. People, myself included, can go years and years without noticing some of the bad things we do, or the things that annoy people or that are actually quite damaging to ourselves or other people. And taking a minute to kind of like speak to your close friends, speak to yourself, or like analyze an argument or a situation you've had and how do you react, and start like making a note of it. This process could take you a while, and like the one thing with all of this healing is you can't rush any of this. Like it can take a while, and I just think like slowly, like before launching yourself into the deep end, just having like a notes page or something and just like making a note of when you get triggered and like how you react. So like if it's an argument with like your friend, what was the argument about? Or is it that person that triggers you? And then how did you react? Did you shout? Did you cry? Did you swear at them? Like how did you react? And like kind of really break it down. And I think it's important in relationships as well. And I'll get into that later, because I think with relationships it is like the best thing and the worst thing. Like it really highlights to us like our worst flaws, and like it basically puts up a mirror to you of showing you this is where you're at your most vulnerable state, your most high intensity with emotion state. Like there is not more of an intense environment really than being in a proper relationship, and that is going to really teach you like, or show you your true colours. Take a minute to heal our triggers, where if people do bring up things that would normally upset us and now we've healed it, we can kind of calm down and sit with it, and less arguments and less wars and negative things will appear, because there's no need to defend ourselves because it doesn't matter, we've healed it. So that was the first thing I did, was okay, well what were like my bad traits? But you know, some of them I was like, damn, like I look back and cringe at that version of myself sometimes. But then like you have to kind of take responsibility and accept it and be like, okay, but then it's like, but why do I do that? Like where does it come from? So first of all, like what do you do? And then two, where does that reaction come from, type thing. And that's where you can forgive yourself, because the first stage I went through was kind of like just angry and cringe at myself, or like annoyed that I let certain things slide with other people, but also upset with maybe things I'd done. And that sometimes can cause like you're really upset with yourself and you beat yourself up real hard. But then the second part to that is you have to learn how to forgive yourself and completely move on, because otherwise you'll be forever in like a blame game mindset. So the way you can forgive yourself is, well, uncovering where does it come from, because most of the time like our bad traits or whatever probably stem from like our parents, like generational trauma. It can stem from friendship issues you've had, early relationships you've had, maybe just some traumatic issues you've had to go through in life, and it has all built you to the person you are today. So going back and unraveling like, oh, maybe, you know, maybe you didn't have a great relationship with a certain parent and that's affected you, or maybe you had a traumatic friendship or relationship young and now that affects the way you view other people, and it can make you quite bitter. And there's all these different things to delve into, and it's up to you to figure out, well, where does this come from? And most of it, like if you dig deep, and I think it's called psychodynamic, I feel like I'm gonna get that wrong, but it's a certain type of therapy that I did where they basically go back to your birth and then they really go through each stage of your life to really uncover, like, well, what have you been through that could have made you this way and made you triggered. Once you've understood that, you forgive yourself a bit, because you're like, well, it wasn't necessarily my fault. You know, most of our behaviours are learnt when we're so young because our brain is so like adapted, and like we will absorb, we're a sponge at that age, we'll absorb anything, and it creates us so young in a time where we don't really have a say, or we know any better. So it's not really fair. You can then forgive yourself a bit, but where there's like a line between people just like forgiving themselves and moving on is, well, no, the third stage is, okay, well, how are we going to stop this? How are we going to change this? How are we going to become better now going forward? And it's hard when we're like a fully grown adult and the brain's already developed. You've spent years of programming your brain a certain way, or other people have been programming your brain a certain way, and you now have to unlearn that, unprogram. We're literally like robots, and that basically takes years. And like I've seen so many videos about how it literally can take ages, but you can accomplish it. And it's like, I even saw this thing, and it was like, if you just do two changes to your day, like 2 lifestyle changes, like, you know, wake up an hour earlier and drink double the amount of water you normally would, and if you can stick to that for a week, a month, I think they said it's 3 months, then it will become habit and it will become a thing. And it should stick. And that's kind of what healing is. It's like, it doesn't just change overnight. You have to like make the correct changes. Even finding out what those changes may be could take ages. Then you've got to stick to it for like a proper amount of time, and your mindset will start to shift. The fourth part of that is relapses, because healing is not linear at all. And I'm the queen of relapses in every sense of the word, but like, it's more, you could be on such a good path and such a good journey, and then one thing knocks you off and you feel like you're starting from the bottom, but you're not. And I think the thing that this week that I've been struggling with is like, I feel like I've got to a place where I have healed a lot of things, as in like I feel very, very peaceful, and I'm so happy with my life and everything. And now I'm having new things come into my life that I should really grab the reins of, take this opportunity, really have fun with it. But because I'm so scared of having to go through the process again, it's like I'd rather shut myself in a box, which is so hypocritical from the things I say, because if an opportunity presents itself to you, you can't just sit comfortable all the time. Like what my friend's been saying to me is like, well, how are you ever going to learn if you don't let yourself go out of your bubble? Like, you can be happy, yes, and sit in like la la land and keep your life the exact same, but one, that's going to get boring quickly, and then two, like, you're never going to experience the human life. And we spend so much time trying to prevent bad things from happening that we don't let good things come. Okay, well, like, I could choose this new, like, very out of my comfort zone, like, things, but that's scary and that could lead to bad things that I've just healed type thing, if you know what I mean. So I think remembering that if you've done it once, you can do it again, and if you haven't done it once, well, you're about to start your journey on it. And I just feel you've got to just go in almost naive with things now. I feel like we're young, we've just got to have fun with it. I think as long as you have spent the time healing and you understand what your boundaries are and things, it's really easy then to like notice when your boundaries are maybe falling, or like you're maybe going backwards, or you're relapsing, because you're very aware of yourself. Healing, you become so aware of yourself that you know exactly when you're doing something wrong, when you're feeling bad, when something's triggered you. Like, you could literally be speaking to someone and being like, they've just triggered me, I'm not going to react because I know it's just a trigger. Like, that's how self-aware you want to become, so that when you do start to slip, which is so natural and is part of the human experience, at least it's a bit easier to get the reins back and, like, you know, take yourself forward. And that is the risk with the human life, is just like, yes, we need to spend all this time healing, figuring ourselves out, but you can't just like lift yourself up to a place that's so like delusional and la la land and then never like have fun with the life that has been given to you. Like, the reason that we're healing is so we can enjoy the flow and the ride and everything. So it's I'm in two minds about it. I'm speaking about, but I'm still not sure myself of like, the whole purpose is to let go and trust the process and just have fun with it. But when you have been knocked down so many times and you've spent so long in a very hard healing journey, you don't want anything to knock that because it's so important to you. So it's like, where's the balance, where's the fine point? But I think the biggest thing I've learned is like, there's so many times that I fell off the healing ladder and got back on, either because of my own actions or because of someone else. So I might as well have fun with it, and if it happens again, I've got the right support system around me, and I'm so self-aware that eventually I know I'll get straight back on. And it's all very negative thinking to think that way as well. Like, instead of going, well, what if this happens and what if that happens, you want to turn it and be like, what if the good things happen? What if it does turn out really well? What if it isn't as scary as I thought? And what if it's X, Y, Z? And I feel like that's now the mindset I'm trying to shift, of just kind of being like that, like naive, not naive as in like silly, but like naive as in like, just let go and just loosen up and throw yourself in, because you're either going to have a great time or you're going to learn a valuable lesson. And both of those things are so important, and if you don't have either of those things, then it's a very boring life. Like, another stage of healing, forgiving others, this one's quite hard, but you know, people around you, your friends, relationships, family, parents, whatever it is, it's important to just forgive, because the more you kind of hold on to this grudge or negative energy, the more that you kind of absorb. And I think the more you can let go of it, the easier it is to just shake off and focus on you, rather than spending your whole time questioning, but why, because you're never going to get an answer. Instead, it's about acceptance. You don't have to forget, but it's about just accepting that that situation has happened, and how are you now going to change your reaction to it, type thing. I think something that really helped me was like, well, it's everyone's first time on earth as well. Like, we're all going to make mistakes, we're all going to let people down, whether we want to or not. I think there are some things in the world that is very just, you know, blatantly rude and disrespectful. But again, it's up to you to be able to say that it's not a me problem, it is them, and you to change your life and you change your direction. Never take anything personally. Like, whatever people are putting onto you is just a reflection of them. But if you keep putting up with it and don't do anything about it, now it's a reflection of you. So it's important to just take things at face value and just turn, and be able to turn. Don't be latching onto friends, family, or feeling bad for doing that. It is entirely your life here. We all have great friends and family, but at the end of the day, we're born into this world alone. We will die alone. So it is important to put yourself first, look after yourself first. And if that means you need some boundaries, you need to distance from people, you need to do what you need to do, that is so valid and so okay, as long as you communicate it and make it very clear. And some people aren't going to hear you, they're not going to want to hear you, that's fine, but you've done your part, and you need to do everything you can to get back onto like the positive wave in your life. I think healing your inner child is a big one, because like the way I look at like my life is like healing my inner child comes with more like sadness. Like, I see things and I feel like me as a child would have wanted that, I deserved that, type thing. So it's up to me as an adult to kind of give myself that, and it's very hard when you live as an adult, because it's like some of the things might seem cringe, but even like doing a sport that you used to love when you were little, or doing an activity that you used to love, or foods that you used to love, like it's things like that like a kid would love doing and wouldn't think of the consequences. And sometimes you have to give yourself that a little bit, like that free-spirited soul, and it does heal you in a child. And then you think about maybe your teen years, and for me, teen years this is where I think my relapsing comes into play, of like revenge, aggression, a lot of hormones and a lot of anger. This is where I think everyone takes things very personally, is we're so hormonal and we're just all pretty much looking for love in all different ways. And when people, friends, whoever disappoint us or do whatever, we get very revengeful and very angry, because we think, why? I wouldn't do that. So that's all about forgiving the other person and accepting that it's their issue. And that comes into place of, well, why do you feel the need to be loved so much? Like, what is missing? Like, and again, it all links, okay, well, let's look at your relationships with your family and growing up. What was it like? Why have you got like a hole missing, and why do you feel the need to fill it? And why do you feel the need to get other people to fill it instead of yourself? So that's always interesting, because like someone could maybe do you a little bit dirty, yes, but it will always seem like the worst thing in the world if you're already missing like a little bit of love. This is the person that you thought would fit that bit of the puzzle, and now they're not there. It's gonna hurt, obviously, so it's so important that you are okay to fill the puzzle yourself, and everyone else just slots in as a bonus piece. But it's okay if they come and go, and I talk about that bit all the time, because I think that has been my lifesaver of like, it's okay if like people come and go, jobs come and go, cars come and go, like it's not the end of the world. Change is part of the human experience. Change is terrifying to me, but it is so necessary to grow and to learn and to actually have fun, because I feel like I've been on a big healing journey sort of this year, maybe like 6 months completely isolated. I wouldn't say isolated because I still went out, but like completely alone with my thoughts and not adding anyone else into my circle like too closely. And that was so necessary to really understand who I was, and that I am capable of being alone completely, and I can give myself that self-love and that hole that's missing that I talk about, and I can do it and I'm fine. So now anyone I bring in is a bonus type thing. But now I'm getting to the stage where it's like, okay, now it's time to bring the bonuses in, and it's like, well, I actually quite enjoyed just sitting there completely alone, comfortable with the same job I had, the same friends, the same places I go out. And sometimes it's important to kick yourself out and be like, it's time to go explore and do new things, which is terrifying, but that is part of it. And yes, there may be a risk of a relapse there, but that clearly shows that you're not completely healed and there's more to learn. And I think that's going to carry on your whole life, really, of thinking you're healed, something comes in, you fall down again. It just tells you that, okay, this part of your healing journey isn't quite done yet. Let's navigate to that, because you might be so focused on healing maybe like inner child stuff, and then like self-love or issues come out of nowhere. So now it's time to just like move it, and you're going to be doing that constantly, and that's fine. You just want to get to a place in your life where you're okay with doing all this work, and you're like, you actually find it fascinating now. Like I find it so fascinating when I am triggered, or where I do relapse, or like where something does really scare me, because I'm like, whoa, learned something new about myself today, and that now interests me. Whereas before it was more like, life is out of control, I need to learn how to control this, and that mindset has to go. Another thing as well is that, you know, it is worse to be with the wrong people and the wrong crowd than to be alone. And a lot of people think I'd rather have someone than no one, but I genuinely think the times where I felt way more in tune with myself and happier, like genuinely happier, is where I have taken myself away from people, even friends I completely love. I just like to kind of battle and challenge myself sometimes. Can I be alone? Yes, it may be boring, yes, it may be lonely, but like, am I content with the idea of it? Yes, I am. So now it's like, okay, I can like mingle back in and find myself. But it is so much better to be able to do that than have people that are going to drain the life out of you, or you're not aligning with, or literally do not get you, where you're having to like water down your personality, you can't be yourself, or you're having to be careful, and then you start thinking, well, I don't want to lose these people. And I think the tighter you hold on to people, the more easier they'll go. So it's very important to just, as I say, let people flow in and out. Everyone is here to serve a purpose. I think everyone comes into your life to serve a purpose at the right time, and I genuinely believe everyone that's come in and out of my life has served the right purpose, and I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful for everything. I don't think there is obviously going to be situations where you're like, it didn't need to go that way, but again, you've just got to be like, it's not my issue, let's just take away the good parts out of it. What did I learn? And when new people, you know that they're coming in for a reason, they're about to add some value, they're going to give you something, and it's almost exciting to be like, why is this person coming into my life now? What value are they about to give me? What am I about to give them? And it's like, okay, this is exciting, it's a new chapter. And just literally romanticize your life as if it's a book or a movie of like, what is next? What's the next plot twist? But be okay with the plot twist and be okay with it changing all the time. That's where you're going to learn. I think getting out of the victim mindset as well, you might be completely entitled to be in a victim mindset, but it's addictive. It really is addictive, and it can spiral. And I think the more you put yourself in situations where you are the victim, or you speak about that more often, the more likely it's going to happen. I genuinely believe that whatever you put out returns. I think if you put out negative energy, you have a shit week. If you put out good things, you have a really good week. And obviously that gives and takes with certain things that are out of your control. Like even like with job interviews or things you're really nervous about, if you keep saying this is going to go horrible, this is going to be bad, more chances it will turn bad. So now I'm really like, I catch myself, I think, oh, this is going to be like so bad. And I'm like, no, because that could happen. So now I'm like, no, this is going to go so well, and I visualize it. I'm like, no, this is going to happen, this is going to happen. And most of the things where I have done that have turned out so fine, and I've been overthinking for no reason. I think I struggle a lot with anxiety, and just letting go a bit and just saying it's going to be okay. Like, what if it does go well, not what if it goes wrong, has really like helped me, and I think just calmed me down, knowing that like the more, the tighter I hold on to situations, the more likely it could go wrong. I also do encourage people to put themselves in vulnerable positions, and I'm going to be a hypocrite here because there are some things that really scare me, and like I will try and be like, look, you know what, I'm quite happy with my life. I think I'll just stay in my comfy little box and like just get into bed. But I think that's sometimes where life feels very like plain and boring, and then something does happen kind of out of your control and you react so badly to it again, and you think, wow, my healing, like I've been put down right at the beginning, and it's because you're not putting it into regular practice. I genuinely think healing has to be done as a regular practice, or you do forget or like lose momentum. I think testing yourself and triggering yourself in little ways keeps your brain thinking, keeps your self-awareness going, and you're more okay with new things and change and everything happening. But if you just like heal one big issue and just sit real content and never really go out your comfort zone, then when you're forced to do it later on, all these triggers could come back and hit you 10 times harder, and you could proper relapse. So I think it is important to regularly get yourself out there and regularly do things that you don't actually love. And this is more advice to myself right now, but I can see why it's so important. But I feel like healing is not a straight line, but I do think that the more times you just sit back and think, why is this upsetting me? What is this teaching me? Where can I find some positivity in this? Has really saved my mindset from being proper depressed and hating this world to really loving it and finding some real beautiful things and really having fun with it. So I think being able to turn that is a blessing, but it's very hard work and can take a long time, and it doesn't work for everyone. But I really do encourage you to find the steps, maybe start therapy, or just look into like your upbringing, maybe things that you feel you don't want to open a can of worms on, things you have been bedding. And sometimes it's okay to just stop and just think about it, relive it if you have to. If it brings out cry, emotion, anger, that's so natural and probably good for you. And sometimes you go back on these situations and think, does this still trigger me? You read, I don't know, messages, photos, whatever it is, and you feel nothing. That's how you know you're fine. But sometimes your brain just needs to revisit some things to know, have I really healed and moved on from that? Am I okay to try something completely different? Do I need to take the time to sit in your little bubble? Because sometimes that's necessary too. Sometimes, you know, you're wounded and you're broken, and sometimes you do need to protect yourself, and that's where you're basically looking after your inner child. Is you take yourself away from the real world just for a bit and just look after yourself, rebuild yourself, stay kind, and then you've got to like almost be the adult and kick yourself back out. It's like moving out of your first house with your parents or something. It's like time to go now. But hopefully next time I'll be back in the car with other guests or something. I just really wanted to find like a little pit stop and just like summarize everything, and then eventually we'll carry on with new topics and maybe more light-hearted stuff. So